Okay, we are live. Let me just confirm this and see if I can listen to myself. Oh yeah, audio is good. Okay. Let's just slowly get this thing going. Okay, all right. We got about 4 minutes, but I won't wait for those 4 minutes. We're gonna get started here pretty soon, guys. So today, what I want to do is a review of work. So in a couple of the communities, we've posted posted this live. We are going to look at just a few pieces. So on the page, I've just got just a few pieces because I want to try to go deeper into the work itself and see if we can actually find ways to really level it up. And so if you don't know me, my name is Ryan Kingsline. I'm the founder of Vertex School. Before Vertex School, I had Game Artist Institute, then I had ZBrush Workshops. And before ZBrush Workshops, I actually helped build ZBrush working at Pixelogic. And before that, I was a poor poet in Prague. Traditionally trained artist. I learned at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts way back in the day, the days of AOL. And that's kind of always followed me through this entire conversation. I have been focused on this idea of, sorry, I have to kind of keep the ringer on for family stuff. But I've always believed in craft, and craft is really one of the things that we really want to chat about today as much as possible. I want you guys to put your notes in the comments as well as you join and as people come in. And what we're really going to try to do today in just the nuts and bolts, the most important thing is we're going to try to make a difference in the work. Okay, the second thing that we're going to try to do is provide a framework so that you understand how Vertex School works and really what you need to do to get your work to the next level. Right? Because what's really important in my mind is knowing that art and mastery it's not magic, it's really just process. You have to learn the process of the masters and you become the master, right? And the process it's technical stuff, but it's also mindset. It's also, just things that you're focused on, right? Which is part of the mindset. And so finishing work is a particular process. Starting work is a particular process. And then grinding on different areas, and executing in different areas, that's also a process. And at Vertex School, we have game arts, prop development, character development, environment. We have game development itself. And then we have tech art. And game development is really gameplay engineer. And then tech art, we are focused on the art side of it and the tool building, right? So any questions, shout them out. Otherwise, I think what I'm going to do is get started and start looking at some of the work and start giving framework for making it better. All right, let's go ahead. Let's see. Okay. We'll start here. Let me know if you guys can hear me or if there's any problems. And okay, so a Vertex student. All right, let's go. And this was last year. So what are we dealing with? This is a machine, Blade Runner. Okay, cool. All right, so this is a prop. So number one, right off the bat, I would not put a video on the top. It does show it in game, but you really want this or something like this to be, on the front. But also, as I'm looking through here, this is There's too many hero shots. Oh, John, this is actually a slight tragedy. And we're going to have to beat the term 1 mentor. So you need to have two things when you are doing this. Let me make sure Epic is here. So you need to have a hero in-game, right? Then you need to have wires, and then you need to have maps, right? And so these are absolutely essential. You've got to have a post with each one of these. Right now from this, John, I can't tell if this is, I can't tell how you modeled this. I see you've got color, the textures there, and you know, and it looks exciting, but you know, there's no technical information. I actually don't know if this is a good game asset. I know you've got a filmic and an artistic perspective, but right off the bat, this is going to be like the first framework that I give you guys. You don't want artsy fartsy, you want career, right? And you have to remember who's looking at your work, always. Who's looking at your work, what do they want, right? And so right off the bat, let's say you're an outsourcer is looking at this work. They can't see the topology, they can't see the polygon count, they can't see your textures in a 2D fashion. They're going to skip this work. They're going to fly right by it. It's going to disappear and is not going to make a dent. You must catch them first with, here's a hero shot of all of these images. Like here's the front, the side, the 3/4 is what it looks like, not animated. Then you got to go, okay, how many polygons? What's the topology like? Is this all quadded out? Did you create geometry for games? A lot of triangles. Then I need to see the textures. All right, do you know noise? Do you know cavity? You know, are you thinking about, are they layered into your texture maps? Right, because that's what an outsourcer needs to know. They need to know, can you do it at a certain polygon count? Can you do it at a certain resolution? Well, that's a polygon count. Are you utilizing the texture? How do I say this? Are you capturing stuff in the texture, or are you capturing stuff in the geometry? That's a big deal. And so if you cannot prove that you're capturing certain details, certain levels of information in a texture map versus geometry, then I'm going to assume you cannot, and I'm going to pass you up, right? So artsy fartsy or career. Right now, this is an artsy fartsy post. You need to take this one down, start another one, because to me, this is basically not going to work. This is not going to give you the result that you want. All right, now let's take a look at the next piece. Okay, I'm going to keep crushing through here real quick. Let's see. Assume that was a term 1 and a term 2. This is what you've done now. All right, you vindicated yourself. So the animation doesn't help you for the prop, the video animation. It does help you for this. But we still have to address the question of who's looking at it and what do they want, right? So this looks super cool. I'm going to watch it again. Okay, so these trims, these panels, are they repeating? Yes, looks like they're repeating. All right, so who's looking, what do they want? I can sense that there's repetition in this, but now as I scroll through this, that's going to be what I try to figure out. I'm going to try to figure out, is there What not efficiency? Yeah, what efficiencies are you using? So are we talking about like, are we kit bashing this? Are we using how much of this is baked into the texture? How much of this is geometry? How much of this is texture? Yeah. All right. Let's take a look at this. Let me move this off to the side here. Hold on. Okay. Let's scroll down. Ah, yeah, there we go. That's what we need. But this is showcasing 1, 2, what do you have? You have, on a grid, you've got one that's this way. Then you've got okay, and then you got a flat, and you got a flat. Are these the same? You've got a flat with the open. You got a flat with the closed. These could be different textures. You got a 2. All right, so yeah, you've got a pretty comprehensive kit here. This is looking quite solid. You've got your tileables. That's good. You've got, okay, good. Original assets. Fab. All right, great. Let's keep going. This is a hero. Like, this is a great thing. This is what we're seeing right on the screen. Like, this is a really fantastic thing for you to have in your portfolio. I'm not a fan of animation. I'm a fan of just still images because you have to remember the people that are looking at your work, they're just crushing through it, right? So they don't want to sit and watch anything play out usually. This is very high quality work, but I want information, and I want information in a certain way. So, for example, this first image, like right here, so this is something that I might want to see just all by itself, so I can sit and digest what's happening. But I get, like, now you're doing, 1, 2, what are the different layers, and 3. So, yeah. Information, here's your reference. You're talking about scale, great. You're giving some detail into this. And you're giving us a lot of, like, this is great information in here. Okay. Trim sheet. Mesh painting. Okay, fantastic. Okay, great. John, let's take a look at this next one too. This other one. Okay, boom. Good. I don't care for the visual. This is your best shot. So this shot is okay, but it doesn't speak to the scale of your work. This is much more impactful in that. Maybe actually I'm 50-50 on this. So there's a lot of taste that comes into this. I don't know if I like the first image or if I like this second image. Yeah, I'm 50-50, right? And anytime there's a taste, like I'm not sure, you just pick the one that you like. So keep it where it is. Okay, but again, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to ask who's looking. So somebody's outsourcing company, because those are usually the ones, like, they're a great model for me to mentally think and be like, all right, how's this? Is it going to fit? Is it going to work or not? Okay, and then what do they need? They need to see, okay, can he create a kit, maybe, right? Can he create assets? Can he do texturing? Can he do trim sheets, right? Trim sheets is a big one. If you don't know trim sheets, you got to know trim sheets, right? if you don't know how to deal with mesh painting, if you don't know the efficiencies of different environment art aspects, you have to dive deeper. And environment art is one where it has a lot of efficiencies, and that's really what people are hiring you for. So, I don't see any wireframes. The lack of wireframes really disturbs me. But okay. And so this is a huge leap. Let's look at the at this. It's a huge leap from this. So I'd really like to know, like, what happened, because these are two very different approaches, and they kind of hint at what's one of the most important parts of this. I just need a still image. See all those videos? The videos are going to kill me, John. Okay, so these are very different. And this is, to me, this is a super important point to kind of connect on. What is the difference? What happened inside your mind to allow you to go from one to the other? What tool did you use? What mindset? Where did you go, right? And so one of the things that I like to, especially when I was more directly teaching at Vertex, one of the things I like to talk about is this idea of, the illustrator versus the really just the game artist, right? So a lot of times we forget that, especially environment artists, right? Your job is actually to create an illustration. Your job, and mind you, there's a lot, when you're working in production, there's a lot of people involved in the illustration. It's just at this phase, you're responsible for the illustration, or you want to be responsible for as much of the illustration as possible. So you're actually a painter right now. All environment artists, for the most part, are painters. Now, some don't pick up the visual stuff, like they just never get it. And then they'll move off into more technical worlds because there's plenty of need there as well. And then others will be able to go into the more artistic and more craft-centric side of it. And then there's others that kind of bridge the world between the two. Obviously, we have a tech art program at Vertex, and for me, the most important thing is that it's really that you be able to blend both. And actually, give me 1 second. I forgot. I need to hit record on this. Okay, and let's close. No, we're fine. All right, sorry. Just a few technical things. You want to be able to do art and tech, right? A lot of people worry about AI. I get it. AI, I'm worried about AI as well. But I think there's just too much clickbait. So what I'm going to tell you is, in my view, the best situation for you to be in is for you to be technically competent and artistically competent. Because if the technology changes, this is still going to be necessary, right? And the technology will change. Right? And so what I see is that you've actually made that leap over into that side of the world. I know I keep moving things around. I want to go and check the side here. There we go. All right, perfect. And I'll leave that open for chats. All right. So what changed? And whatever that is, that idea that you are an illustrator, this is really just what's so important to me in this work. So, you have shadows, right? And if you look down here, a really important one is you have details in the shadows. That's a thing for photographers to learn. Your lights are not too blown out. You have details in the light as well. So you've been able to kind of go through both of these worlds. Whereas over here, we look at this and we're like, all right, so it's kind of a cool idea. Your color palette's going to be a complicated one with the purple and this guy over here. And the technicality of setting up the light, like this is stuff that's not entirely set up yet. It's looking a little bit like we need to do more, and maybe we're missing some of the shadows. So the shadowing is becoming a little bit of a problem. Your workflow, this is just super annoying. Weird. Is that unlisted? This might be unlisted, so I can't actually watch it unless I grab the URL. Probably not a good thing. Make sure you list it. Okay. This is really good. Great. I see the topology. I see the gradients. I mean, again, I would prefer not the video, but you see how you have the gradient. We've got our topology, color variation. See how hard this is to comment on? This shot just doesn't sell it. But you learned your lessons. So there's a couple of things that I would, let me see if I can, I mean, actually, here, let's just do this. Let's open this in Photoshop. All right, watch. What I want you to do is what happened to Epic? I want you to watch the color swatch. Look at how much variety is happening in the hue and your saturation. Even right here, we're getting, in where there's one color, we're getting a lot of variation in saturation. That's good. Arguably, we're getting too much down here. But this is really good. I would question some of that. Like it's actually believable to some extent, but what is the thought process? Dystopian. Let's look at some of your reference. I think you put reference in the other one. Why is it doing that? Let's just copy this and get it into Photoshop. All right, so let's look at this. Okay, what I want to do is talk about color variation, value variation, and I want to talk about shapes. All right, these are kind of the three in terms of visual arts. If we're talking about the craft of visual arts, color variation, value variation, we're going to talk about the shapes that you're making. All right, and the shapes that are in your reference over here as well. So let's say in your reference, you can kind of see like this is kind of a homogeneous, if you squint, right? You got to squint. So if you squint, so you take your eye and you're just going to kind of squint and look like this. You're going to collapse the values. That's what you want to do. You want to collapse the values. And I see a shape like right there. Okay, and then I see that is all kind of one. There's a little bit, but then this is all one. And that's what we want. We want to say 1, 2, 3. We want to collapse things down into shapes, basically. And and then we look at those shapes and we see, what are the shapes in the reference? What do we want to match? And this is going to be how you take your work to the next level. Is you actually start thinking about it like a painter, where you're sitting, and the painters do this. So they squint all the time because it's very hard to get all that detail. Let's say if you're doing a particular quick sketch, you're trying to do a value study, a color study, something like that. But you want to start to be able to unify. That way you have control over things. So let's take a look at the work. Okay, so here's a zoom in of yours, and at first glance, like this might make sense, but as I'm sitting here squinting, it's a little bit harder, to kind of pick it up and be like, yeah, that's all one, and that's all one shape. As I come in over here, it's like, okay, there's that, there's this. Okay, and then there's this, and then there's that over there, right? And then when I come up here, it really actually starts to fall apart. You can see actually a lot of strong variation. And ultimately what happens is you get a lot of shapes, too many shapes. And so you're no longer controlling or designing shapes. You're at the mercy of whatever alpha you've thrown in there, right? Or stencil or whatever you have on that surface. You're just at the mercy of it. And this is going to be like you can put something together, you can do it quick. Can you art direct it? If somebody wants to, if they say to you it's too noisy, can you art direct? Do you understand what's actually happening? And what's happening from a visual craft perspective is actually relatively simple. It's that you don't have control over your shapes. Your shapes there's too many of them, right? And so if I was to paint over this to get a little bit more control over the shapes, I've got to look and I've got to check, okay, how much does the color vary in my reference and how much does the value vary in my reference, right? So that's what I'm going to look at next. Okay, again, we're looking up here, and I'm going to go and say, all right, so here's a very bright area down to one of the other areas, and it's basically going from, here, let's use this one. The value is 67 verse 83. 67, 83. Okay, as it got darker, I don't know if you noticed this, as this gets darker, it gets more saturated. Darker is more saturated, lighter is less saturated. There's tiny shift, like it's a 23 and a 25 in color, right? And then even when we're looking right in this area, let's go right in this area. You can see, okay, so 36, 53. 36, 53. This is breaking the rules a bit, where it's like it's a little bit desaturated in the dark and more saturated in the light because of that color there. Because we're really switching two different colors. Okay, and then also if you come down here and you look at the shapes here, just notice, right, we want to look at this color versus this color. We want to look at this versus this. And then start to make sense out of, okay, so that is a 55-23. That is a 48. Okay, and looks like a different color? No. It's just over here is more saturated and darker by a tiny amount. Just a tiny amount makes a huge difference in this. And that's one of the reasons why I'm calling attention to it, is because your contrast is too extreme for some of these changes. And what we need to do at the higher levels of environment art is learn about the subtlety of color variation, subtlety of value variation, and it's actually not that hard to do. Like if you're doing it in Substance, Painter, or Designer, if you're dealing with a stencil, it doesn't. Ultimately, you're just taking whatever is making that and you're lowering the opacity quite dramatically. If you got blend modes, like if you're in Substance Painter, you're going to use blend modes, but you're going to maybe use more of them. Right? So I remember somebody I was interviewing who worked on the Lego movie mentioned that they had hundreds of layers of just noise just to make this thing look realistic. Hundreds of layers of noise, right? And so you want that mindset. If you're dealing in Substance Painter, you want that mindset of, I need at least 3 layers of noise. I need big shapes, medium shapes, small shapes. And then you probably need actually a couple of those so that you get variation within the shapes themselves. So you have a set of 3 big, medium, small shapes that the noise is adding. And then you'll have maybe 3 sets of those where one has a reddish tone and another's going to take it darker or more bluer, whatever it is. You just need to have variation within it, okay? Let's get in and paint, though. So again, this is the reference. This is what you've got. And so now if I come in here and add on top of this, and let me check in. Any questions? Everybody's good? Should be listed now. All right, John's in. Good deal. Should be listed. The video, yes, good. Okay. All right, so we're 26, 23. Okay, and what I'm going to do right off the bat is I'm going to take this color and I just want to spread this out a little bit. So and let me put opacity in the actual brush stroke itself. So let's set our opacity low. Okay, and I'm trying to get a cohesion so that as I squint, right? Like I'm here and I'm squinting. I got one eye closed and I'm squinting with the other one, trying to kind of break it down. And yeah, let me show you. So that's before and that's after, right? And so now that's added a little bit more cohesiveness, but I have to start to design the shape. So I say, okay, so this is kind of a lightish area. And let's go ahead and get like a little bit of a darker area like you have coming here. And then this is not a bad shape. So let's work on these shapes. Let's say those are the shapes that we're kind of, and the shapes are designed around usage too, right? Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Doing a live right now. Okay, hold on. I'm doing a YouTube live right now. I'll get back to you as soon as that's over. But that sounds awesome. Okay. All right, so let's go. I like this red. No, I don't like that red. I like that red. I don't know if I like that red. That red's pretty saturated. You gotta be really careful. Is this making sense? Is it making sense how we're designing shapes here? You know? It's all about, and here I'll show you what I'm doing. I just want you to see me doing this. Like I want you to see somebody doing something silly like squinting their eye and trying to get control. No, that's not. That's the wrong color. And oh yeah, that's nice. You got to open your mouth. You gotta look weird, right? Nobody's gonna see it. I mean, you guys are seeing it, but oh yeah, look at that. Okay, let's look. Now suddenly, in my view, and then you see the contrast is too much in here. I don't want to go with just the darkest though. But I want more control over the shape. And control that matches usage. Ah, look at that. Look at that. So much more subtle. That's exciting. All right, let's look. Look for a before and after. Okay? So that's before. And then that is after. And now let's zoom out. Before and after. And so what your eye should be telling you at this point, before, after. And so this is one of the weird things about being an artist is sometimes you have to just do something, and then once you've done it, your brain, your eye, whatever, it's like leveled up. It's like on the next plane. And then you can look back at your work and you can be like, oh, how did I ever think that that was right? And so often I will go through and just be doing stuff, and I'm like, I'm not sure if it's right, I'm not sure if it's right. And then I do a before and after, and then it's like, yes, it looks better. So, you know, if we're zoomed in here, let's get in. That looks like it has more realism. It doesn't look like I've sacrificed on any of this stuff, but when I look at the before, I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like it doesn't look entirely right. This is starting to look a little bit more right. Does that make sense, John, since I have you here? Yeah? Okay, good. So that extends here. It also very importantly extends here in the shadows. So you want to be very careful when you have a value variation of, let's say that's a 5 to an 11 right there, like that's, let's go with the 11 and just kind of, and just make it larger. This is not going to be easy, but maybe it is. So maybe all it is you're just going to go into whatever it is that's adding that, whether it's a stencil or if it's actually in, if it's in Substance Painter, then it's easy. If it's Designer, you just got to add more layers to the conversation. But now you look at that before and after, right? Of course, I'm softening the lighting in there a little bit. That's kind of doing it. But ultimately, this is a texture issue that you want to address. But there's so much good stuff. I mean, look at this. It's like, you have this is a red. This is kind of a blue. And so you have a lot of color variation in this. You have a lot of just wonderful stuff being done. I don't know why it's doing that. And so I would say, ultimately, what we have a situation like the primary issue that I'm talking about is actually value variation. And that's opacity and blend modes and just having a small shape, medium-sized shape, and a big shape. And then having the alpha between them. All right. So while I have you, what made the difference? I don't know if you were here earlier when I was asking what made the difference between these two projects, the earlier one and this one. What do you think? My daughter is asking for more time on Roblox. I can't request it. I can't request it. Ah. Okay. Spent twice as long on it. Spent way more time on Texture and Painter and Designer. And reiterated quite a few times. Perfect. That's exactly it. Right? So, again, there's worries about AI. There's worries about competition in our industry. And you guys might know, like, I've been doing this for a long time. Vertex has been around 5 years. I was teaching 12 plus years before that, if not 10, 15 years before that. The overwhelmingly important piece of information in all of this is that you just need to spend time, right? And so when people are in the beginning and they're learning, they're focused on, I learned this, I learned that, I learned this, right? And so that's a phase. You got to get through the I learned this phase. And then you got to get through the, oh my God, I've actually put together a scene phase. And then you've got to get past another until you're at the phase where you're just like, I'm just grinding and iterating and spending, an absolutely lavish amount of time on this project. Because, this industry is what we call what I call a threshold industry, which means that, your work has to be at a certain level, right? If it's below this level, your work does not exist. It just doesn't exist. If your work is above that level, then you become a job candidate. That's the important distinction. There's 1,000 people applying for a job, right? They're crushing through your portfolios, their portfolios. They're just looking, They want to get this. Do they have this? Do they have this? Boom, move to the next, right? And so you want to make sure that your work is at a level where you actually get considered. But last I heard, out of 1,300 were actually candidates. So it's still really a big competitive industry, a lot of things that you've got to be thinking about. And so when you are developing your work, you just have to keep this threshold in mind. You're like, this is all job candidate. This is everything else. And so I opened up the program. This is, I know how to use Substance Painter. This is, I know how to use Unreal. And between here and here, you got a lot of work to do to get above and be a job candidate. And so, John, this is absolute job candidate material. The next important step is that you start to think like a painter and you start to design your shapes, right? So I always bring people to Simon. Always I go to Simon. So this is an example. Now this is stylized, it's not realistic, but it still works in my opinion to explain how you need to focus on the subtlety of it. Like if you look here, you can see gradient, right? And then this is red, this is desaturated, there's red yellows in here. But ultimately, the variation between all of these things is, let's look here. Yeah, this is the great column to look at. If you look right in here, there's not a lot of variation. Even the shadow, notice how light that shadow is. Okay, so if we were to copy this and throw this into Photoshop, what is going on with I don't know what's going on in my Photoshop. What the hell dumbass thing is it doing? In window, view. Oh well, we'll work with this. Notice the variation. Like I don't have my buttons up there. Where are my buttons? Okay, let's deal with this. Notice my color, my 24, saturation 39, 84. Small changes as I'm moving around. This Photoshop is going crazy. Okay, well, we're gonna have to live with this dumbass program. But small variations, right? That's what's really important. Okay, let me get off this because I'm gonna lose my mind if I'm trying to figure this out. Let me see if I can start this again. Okay, it'll be better now. All right, so John, is that helpful? The work you got, I'm terribly excited. I think this is really great stuff that you got going on. And so this is really the leap forward that you needed to make. You have demonstrated that you've got trim sheets, you understand designer, painter, you're 100% a job candidate. Now just go in and start creating shapes and you're gonna be in great shape. Cool. Okay. All right. So, and John, if you have any questions, like shoot me a message in the server on that, and I can clarify my crazy. Okay. Okay. Let's look at this prop. Papa Hughes. So we'll look at the prop here in a second. This is a tough one. Okay. Let me show you guys now. This is tough because the material is all one. And so right off the bat, you're kind of already missing one of the important elements that people need to see. This is great, though, that you've got this. But, and you got wood down below. So that's nice. But material distinction, right? Because I like to have labels. It helps me. Material distinction is an important thing in a prop. And this is just all metal, right? So what you need to do is you need to look for the different kinds of metal that could be there. Right now it looks like it's all one metal. But do those little brass knobbies, are those all the same type of metal? They're going to be treated differently. I don't know. But you really want to find different kinds of metal, because what we would want is to have a sense that you can create, you know, a lot of small, subtle variation. Because variation is in the it's the essential element. Right, because in the real world, like, you know, we pick up a different screw, different metal. Like it's very easy to do. In the computer, you have to consciously put that in, right? So you need to work on material distinction as a really important kind of element to it. It could be that those center bands, like something like that, we want that to be, you know, have more material distinction. The next thing that you need to think about is you need to think about gradients, right? So gradients, this is really good gradient you got in here. And so I think we're getting some gradients in here. This stuff, like, where can we get some metal that's not this kind of polish? Like, what about here? Could these be a little bit rougher where they're not so reflective? Maybe because they move around a lot, right? The color on this looks really good. Do you have a color map? Yeah, you got a color map. This is a really good color setup. And so here I can see the gradient. Like, yeah, you've got a gradient here. You've got your working gradients. That's great. The metal is very hard. I might up those gradients a little bit, put a little bit more in there where they meet. And I don't know if these bands, I don't know if I would make those bands darker. I would probably make them lighter, because they might be getting moved around a lot more. Something's there. Gradients are in there. Ambient occlusion. Normal map. Yeah, it's a tough one. This is definitely kind of a tough problem when you deal with one material. But now let's check out your environment. Posted 2 hours ago. Good timing. Okay, again, I'm not... Wait. Why do we have a sword? Okay. Okay. Term 1, term 2 or term 3? What are we dealing with here? Assets. Good. This is very impressive, the tree stuff. Grass, you're showcasing. Let me show all y'all. I was showing all y'all. Good. Perfect. All right. Great job on this one. Okay, what do we got here? Stone material used. Okay, cool. Yeah. Designer. Wow. Okay. Let me look at your other. Ah, the sword's in the center. That's why. Okay. Term 3. All right. So you said final project, but I'm going to give you more work, right? I mean, 9-month program, right? So it really needs to be a 1.5-year program at the end of the day. So you're not done yet. And so there's some technical issues that we got to figure out. You got to figure out the shadowing on the leaves. I'm not sold on the shadowing on the leaves, and I think that that's a bit of a distraction how they don't have that. And it's, it's Unreal Engine, so that's going to be something you got to kind of work out. As we are, how do I say it? I want to talk to you from the perspective of a painter, from the perspective of somebody making an image. I need to do, that's one track. Then we talk from a technical track, and then there's craft to the technical. But let's say we got 2 tracks. So I see that you've got substance painter. Let me go ahead and close John's. Substance designer, sorry. Do we have any trim sheets being used here? Are you using any stencils? This is good. This is a good technical thing that you've put in here. Let's go ahead and show you guys. So this is a really good technical element. Let me check on my daughter. She seems to be freaking out. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so this technically, this is good. This is technically, this is really good, really solid. I love that. I think I could use something where it's like, this is the prop development. So you got vegetation, you got substance designer. I could use something to understand how you built the kit. Like if you can break down what you did with the stone and all those pieces, then I think that would be useful. I think you should also consider putting some more set dressing around, right? But that aside, I think we really need to look at this just from an image perspective. And so that can be handled from this thread right here. And let's go ahead and copy this. Yeah, okay, let's take a look. All right, so right off the bat, one of the things to think about in terms of an image is there is a vignette. Okay, now we might make it too extreme, but honestly, you cannot go wrong with a vignette. Okay, or is it vignette? What is it called? I forget what it's called. But if you get this darkening around the edges, right, and you can see it if you really zoom out on the piece. It's probably too much. See how it focuses the attention on that one particular area? It also takes away some of the distraction that I'm having with the trees, which is that the trees are so bright, but the center of your object is dark. The center of it and what we're focusing on is dark. And we're actually focused on the sword. So you are missing the all the illustrator tricks of like drawing attention to where you want the user to look at, which is actually an environment artist's consideration. I mean, it's a level designer, but you will eventually be, and it's a lighter. A lighter will put something there and be like, that's what it is. But your job now is all of these things because, you don't have a team and you need to sell it. So when we look at this, we're looking at it and thinking, all right, so this is an image. This is like Frederick Church, right? So let's go here. It's old school, but I love to bring people, Frederick Church, right? And so if you're going to do an outdoor scene, this is the dude. And you can see it gets a little darker at the edges. If you squint, you can see it. He's always darkening stuff at the edges. If he's dealing with trees and whatnot, you can see the trees are darker. But within this image, you'll always know where he wants you to pay attention. So where's your eye go, right? Ultimately, it's going to go right here to the point of most contrast. And then from there, it's going to go down, and you're going to notice this little person, right? And so he's rewarded because when Frederick Church was doing this kind of stuff before photography, so this is how people got to experience the nature or something that they couldn't travel to. I grew up in Alaska, and it was a big deal that there was this painting in the museum, huge painting of McKinley. And it was painted like, I think, at least 100 years ago. The painter had traveled to McKinley and had made multiple trips because it gets covered with cloud all the time. And multiple trips. And if you know Alaska, like Alaska's not like, hey, I went camping. It's like, hey, I didn't die. Like Alaska is out to kill you. So doing that it's a pretty big deal. So, he didn't just hike up the mountain. Like, he basically, it's full on survivalist stuff. And not lower 48 survivalist stuff. No Californians involved in this. This is real. And so it was a big deal that he painted this because nobody had been able to see it. Every time you go, it's like, are you on a train and it's cloud cover. But he trekked close enough to be able to see. He waited and eventually got it. And that was people traveled all over the country to see it. It made tours all over the country is actually what happened. And that was a big deal, right? And in that, you want to reward people for coming. So, you have all tricks of the trade as a painter. And you're like, put a little light here, put a little bit here, and then you got a little something going on down here. And that's what he did. He put the falls over here, and then the falls lead down into this little person, and it rewards the viewer for spending time. It's all visual trickery designed to engage the viewer and give them a sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. Today's viewer doesn't, we're Instagram scrolling left, right, and center. Like this stuff barely even registers. But it is my job to remind you of the craft and that this is your job. As a game artist, you are an environment artist. You are creating an environment where people can be like, this is where I'm going to go. This is an important story element, and you have to find ways to help people do that. So if we go back to your work, let's take that down even a little bit more. You see how without it, it's like, I don't know, I just need to get that a little darker. Okay. And then I want to come zoom in, and I can see so much fidelity on the grass, but then the leaves right above it, I don't. So right here, I've got a visual problem where it's like the contrast in these areas is not the same. So, is it above it? Boom, boom. Yeah, these are literally above it. And so there's a different level of visual contrast between these pieces and this piece itself. And that's a problem. Like, these don't look like they're in the same style. You need them to look like they're in the same style. And then I'm always 50-50 on green. Always on 50-50 on green. I'm going to add an adjustment layer. And then okay, but I'm going to paint that back in. Let's see if we can change that a little. You've done actually pretty good. It's just, it's a little saturated. And I guess that's actually the problem that I'm having, is that I feel like we've got two different environments here. You guys still able to hear me? I feel like we've got this environment and then we've got this. And these are not kind of matched up. The level of detail I see here is not matching the level of detail I see here. How do we fix this? This is a conundrum, right? And I don't want you to think, you know, like there's one answer for all of this. It really is, you know, we're trying to figure out a way. This is what painters are doing. They're trying to figure out a way to make something make sense. We use value, we use color, we use saturation. We use edges, and we use shape, right? So how do we make this thing tell its story? That's what we ultimately want to do. And I think there's some color, like we gotta figure out some. We gotta play. There's no way around it. I don't know the answer. I don't have an answer right now. So I'm going to play with a warm. Okay. Okay, that color. There we go. And then let's switch that to a yellow. And then let's just switch that to just a white light. I want to darken the tree behind it. I don't like that these are so light. Okay, let's see. Better, worse? I don't know, right? But what I do know is that I'm searching for an organizing principle to the piece itself, right? And this is honestly, this is stuff I think it's important for you to do, but this is a big lighting job that I'm trying to figure out right now. So can I think this through without the lighting? Let's try a couple of things. Let's set this to overlay. Just darkening that foreground actually makes a bit of an impact to me. What about, what is that? Come on, why do you keep doing this? There you go. Okay, X is what I meant to hit. You're missing some shadows on that work over there. Even that's a little bit better. Does that make sense? Anybody, tell me if this makes sense, because I could be like totally off track. This is, I started to go down a color road. I don't like the color road. Let's just talk about value control. And what we're trying to figure out is where do we want the viewer's attention? So wherever you want the viewer's attention, you want contrast or you want light, right? And so we want that viewer's attention right there in that center. And so I think those pieces need to be lit more. And now, you know, somebody might say like, hey, I lit it, I put the lights in the sky, and that's just where the light falls. And I'll say, well, that's literally the evolution that you need to make. You need to go from just being the technician that sets lights to being an artist that creates the light, right? There's literally no film. I mean, maybe there's one. Any film that you can think of is going to have a cinematographer that designs the light and the shadow of that shot. And they'll put stuff in the way, and they'll put gobos, and they'll put, you know, various things that does not relate to reality. They relate to what is it that the message that we're trying to communicate, right? The the message that we want to give viewers, and you light to that. The lighting creates the message as well. And so you're creating the message here too, but the way that you've got it, if we come back and look at this, we go, this is before. There's no center lighted area. Like just in a general sense, you want the center to be more lighted and the outside to be darker. And then, there's a dark thing here, and maybe that creates contrast and you see underneath it, maybe not. So I would start to think about just controlling the value structure of this image a little bit better, and definitely getting a little bit more control over the amount of detail that you're putting. Maybe even light up. You see how I lit this section right here is lit up even more, right? It's hot. So that's actually kind of nice. If we look at a levels, like let's throw a levels in here. Do you see all the light is, like there's just a lot of dark. But now I can move it like that. And even that actually starts to, even that starts to make some sense. But I still think you need to darken the foreground and lighten that area. Okay? Let's see. Do you guys, that last layer with the light value is helping a lot. Focal point. It makes it seem more magical as well. Right. Yeah. And of course, with magic, the lighting needs to be diffuse. That's what helps sell magic. But makes sense. And often this is my situation with students and artists is the technical almost everybody gets and you can showcase. I still think you need to showcase the topology and more about the actual pieces that you've built. You might not want to because you haven't actually created them as game assets, but I think you have. So you want to present those rudimentary as they are. It'd be good to see a little bit more about vegetation, but no, I think you did that. But I'd like, are they on a card? How are you building them? Are they actual pieces of geometry? And if they're cards, then can I see the card with the alpha? And so you see the wireframe, and then you see the texture in there. Okay, that can be a useful thing to sell it. And I think you've done a pretty good job of all of that. So it's just designing the light, the meaning, right? And I started with color. I don't recommend that. Usually it's value centric. You just need to look at this and put value in the center, make it brighter, darker on the outsides, and just try like the devil to get things to match up that. All right. It's an old painter trick to have a tree in the front that's dark because it instantly throws everything else in relief. Cool? All right. Now, let's take a look and see what else we got. John's asking, how acceptable is it to paint over this in Photoshop versus Unreal? And so I would say, you don't want to make the adjustments I made in Photoshop. I mean, number one, they wouldn't stand up. That was so rough. You want to do this value structure proper in Unreal. But oftentimes, when you export it from Unreal, you're looking at Unreal, it's dark, and so your values have been collapsed, and so it tends to be like a little dark. And so you'll see, just like what we got here on this, where you'll see everything's in the dark area. So it's not a bad idea to just throw levels on there. That I don't think is a bad deal. You just want to make sure, that you adjust, and you think about that later on, but it's not a bad deal to adjust levels overall like that. But if you're like crafting and darkening, putting painting on top of that, and it's not just painting certain corrections, then I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, just go back and figure it out. Because like this one, Papa's got to go back. Love it. Got to go back and really work on the value structure and the lights, and got to build lights and take some lights away. Does that answer that, John? Okay. What time do we got? I don't want to. We were only going to take like a. I'm going to take about an hour and a half, guys. So I won't do everybody's that's here. I feel like, Sadie, I have done your work. Yeah, I remember seeing this. So are you here, Sadie? Not quite sure what you wanted me to look at. Pops. Pop swag, would it be better to put this on the back burner and try another one? I'd say no. Grind through this. You've got a lot of great work in there, and I think if you just work on the lighting and the presentation, it's going to come across. But Sadie, remind me what if we looked at this. SHW art. So there's a lot of people that submit to this. And so I'm by nature not going to get to everybody. I am, of course, trying to prioritize Vertex students. So, but if you haven't labeled the work as Vertex, then I won't know. But I'm prioritizing because they're the people that have invested in us and in me specifically. So I am making sure, and if I don't do it, then I will do it the next time. But the hope is that this applies, right? And that's really an important thing to think about is, I know everybody wants feedback on their work, but really, you need to build your own mental critique model. You do not want to be at the mercy of random people on the internet, right? A thing that used to happen a lot, people would look at work for character, for example, and just be like, yeah, you got to work on your anatomy. Yeah, you got to work on your anatomy. Yeah, you got to work. What the hell does that mean? Anatomy is an endless black hole, and I know. You could never learn anatomy. You can learn some anatomy. You can't ever learn anatomy. Like that's an endless trough. So what I want you to be thinking about as you guys are watching this, and this is SHW art, look at my language. Language is how humans learn. No matter what, we codify knowledge generally within language, sometimes within visuals, but generally within language. So what's really, really important to me is I develop words and vocabulary that you can use to help you grow. So I said material distinction. That should be something you all write down. And then it's on your checklist. You look at your work and you're like, is there material distinction? Does this material look distinct from that material? And then there's color variation, value variation, right? And then there was shapes, right? This is vocabulary. You should write it all down. And so then you look at your own work and you say, do I have shapes designed, or am I at the mercy of an alpha or a stencil or whatever is going on, right? Like if we look at Sadie here with this towerborn, this looks pretty good in terms of its design. The problem with Sadie's stuff here is these are not intended to be props. So I don't actually see the proper prop foundation. But look, so, if you look right here, there's red, green, and then there's lighter, and then there's more saturated. And, and then if you look over here, you see like purple, and then light blue, and then, there's just variation. So that means color variation. there's also value variation. So there's more stuff going on than just throwing on a fill layer. So the vocabulary is the most important thing that I communicate to you guys. It is, in fact, the only thing I'm really interested in communicating. When I look at your work, to me, this is the moment to communicate my vocabulary. And like with Papa's, I was looking at not just how do I fix this, but I was trying to figure out how do I communicate what's wrong, which is the vocabulary. There's no focal point. There was no value structure focused. The value structure was diffuse and all over. Value structure is something that artists use, they do all the time. 100, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, they would paint in black and white. And they would establish the focal point and all the different, everywhere they wanted your eye to go, it would be all black and white, and then they would put color over the top of it. So they would do value structures first. In the Ashcan movement about 100 years ago, or a little bit more, alla prima became a thing. So you just painted color straight on this, right? And alla prima's a fucking pain in the butt to figure out, right? But that's all modern stuff. Traditionally, in terms of creating images, people always created value structures. Then they created color harmonies, and on from there, you know. So again, my goal is to communicate with you a language. Okay, so Sadie, if you're on, tell me, because I feel like I've critiqued this already. Ty, using glaze on your posts, it added visual texture. Unfortunately, to prevent, I actually have no experience using glaze. Probably something I need to look at. But it fits into the larger conversation of AI and scraping. And so I believe Vertex needs to protect, like, we need to keep AI from scraping. This is something I just was made aware of, is that one student can go into our community and then ask Claude to grab all the images that are there, and then those are ingested into it, and there you go. We obviously want to prevent that. Like, AI cannot go to Instagram and scrape it. Like, if you try, it'll say, sorry, I can't read it, right? So it is something that I think if you're worried about it, you should do. Whether the cat's out of the bag or not, I don't know. It's kind of, we don't know where the future is going to go. And the individuals in charge of this have not been ethical. I think we can all agree. So the one thing that I think you need to focus on is just become as good as you can possibly become and learn the craft. And, you know, there's that old statement of become undeniable. And I think it's truer now than it's ever been. You just need to become undeniable. Maybe AI replaces some jobs, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It's a crazy world. But you can't control that, and you can't control the ethics of these people doing it. You can only control yourself. Okay. I love it. Think Tank graduates. Okay, good. I'm just crushing through this. I feel like Lenava, I've done this one before, but maybe not. This is somehow familiar to me, but let's leave that. I'm going to do... I'm just figuring out which ones I want to focus on right now. Okay, Stephen has work. Look at his portfolio in a general way. Think tank. And this. Okay, sweet. I'm going to put all you think tankers together. I do not like this style of ArtStation. I absolutely hate it. This I can handle. Tank, put you at the side there. We got a professional in here. Zol. And so I got a professional, and then 3 think tankers, and we got character, and on from here. All right. We ready? Okay, so I'm gonna again kind of try to lump things together because I know you guys want the individual feedback, but I want you to get the vocabulary. And so what I want generally trumps your desire in these cases in which it's free. So I really am interested in vocabulary. So there are some other things to consider in terms of what you guys are presenting. Like, it's not just the art, but also how you're presenting your work, because you might be at different stages of the game. And so, you know, I think we can look at Steven right now as a professional, and we can kind of crush through and take some lessons, right? So, proof, the work, photogrammetry artist, and you can't show any of it, probably. That's a tough one. I don't actually have I don't know how you explain to people the photogrammetry. And so ultimately we would have a problem. This is 7 years ago. This is 8 years ago. I mean, Stephen, this is great for 8 years ago. This is great for now. You know, so the question really becomes, like, what do you want, right? And so these are the Star Wars of 3 years ago. And they're actually just screen grabs, right? So I know other people that are in this situation too, where it's like, what do they do now? And then what are you doing now? I just looked. I know I did. Okay, you got your own and your level designer. So it really comes down, Stephen, to, you know, like goals and vision. I'm having to do this now too, right? So we want to start to think about, you know, what is it that your goals, what are your goals? So are you at the stage of life where you focus on money? Do you need some freedom to spend time with your family while they're growing up? And tell me if you guys can hear me okay, because I'm in this place where they have these carbon, it's sucking the carbon out of the room because we're in a place where people drive their cars into. So let me know if that gets loud. An SHW, is that you? SHW, that would be you. So I don't want to get blacklisted. Yeah. You can't post it. You don't want to get blacklisted. Your goal is freelance. So if your goal is freelance, it's pretty simple. Doesn't mean it's easy, right? And it's always the same. So there's two things. One, you got to create work that you want to do. you create that work. So you figure out like, okay, do I want to do photogrammetry? Not something I'd recommend that's what you focus on, but you create projects and you have to showcase those projects. So you have your own company. Your company needs to create projects, and then you showcase those projects. And then the second thing that you do is you build training around that, whatever it is. This is really actually the most important lesson for you, Stephen, is whatever you build needs to become a tutorial. You need to become vocal about process. You need to communicate what you did. And that in and of itself will get you the bulk of the work. It always has. I don't know in today's age where people can, ask Claude all this stuff in Unreal Engine. But I mean, I ask tons of stuff and I still have to go to YouTube and be like, all right, well, fucking ChatGPT led me on this course. How do you do this thing? And then there's a video from a dude that just explains it. So you have to create your showcase projects, and you have to create showcase training. Super, super important, because somebody's going to come to you. So for example, just that photogrammetry, right? Where'd you go? Just the photogrammetry that you did for Mandalorian. Go create photogrammetry of an alleyway or something like that and walk through what you're doing, put it on Instagram, like little videos of you collecting this kind of stuff. And you have to market your skill. So that's kind of the number one thing I see that's missing here is, you obviously have the talent, the capacity. You're just not marketing it. Like there's zero marketing. And of course, don't do stuff so you get blacklisted. But even that done and said, there's no marketing. What about your LinkedIn? 2 months ago, show all your posts. You've got a game coming. Cool. That's the company. This is like 2 months, 7 months, 8 months, right? So you either best be busy with freelance, or you best be busy getting busy with showcasing and creating tutorials. And that's the only path, right? So many of us as artists, we have this hope and see mentality. We just want people to see us, and they won't. And it's getting worse because so many answers are done with AI. So many people looking. Like I had a student that he got a job because of a padded armor gambeson tutorial that he created. And so he had this tutorial. It was very clear. Here's what you do in Marvelous. He built this really neat thing. He's interviewing for a job, and the guy's like, "Oh, you're the one who made that gambeson tutorial, right? That was really cool. And he got the job." Now, if somebody's not going to Google, or they're not going to be looking for the gambeson tutorial in the same way. That's done with AI now in a lot of ways, but they're still looking for other things. So you need to do awareness marketing of what your specialty is. But I'm talking. And good. So you're saying you're freelance now and you want to grow as a business, and so that's it. That is what you do. So I have my business. I create tutorials and reels. And I was just taking a class on Claude yesterday. Guy owns a marketing agency. They're quite large. And he's doing these Claude co-work classes and all these other Claude classes. And he said in the class, I have never done any sales calls to grow my business. All I've done is training. We just, initially they were training on Google AdWords. They built little tutorials. People saw that and they were like, oh, my company's telling me to learn this. Can we hire you to do this? And it worked. And they grew their business to 3 locations and managing $1 billion in ad spend. Education is the like it's people miss this all the time. So if you want to grow your business, whatever that is, start creating projects and then creating training to showcase how you did those projects and become an authority in that process. You are here talking to me because I'm an authority in ZBrush, and I built that authority up. You have to build your authority, and you build that authority by creating artwork and creating training. That's really it. Does that help? That make sense? So we would have to know, what do you want to grow your business in? Let's go ahead and go back to this. And then you just need to create a project for that. You know, you have everything here just ready, but like this is 3 years old. They're not going to, I mean, nobody's going to just look for 3 years old. Like you need stuff higher up. This looks really cool. We have this is great. And then where's your texture map? The decals, yeah, that's really solid. That works. But create a project. What is the job that you want? You want to get a job at some government where you're helping them build games with AI? That's one showcase. You know, that's a real thing. Anyways, if you have more questions on that, let me know. Ty Porter, concept artist. And are you working right now, Ty? So I will tell you, Ty, that concept art and in Los Angeles, as you probably are aware, it's a tough game, right? And I would say AI is absolutely taking a chunk, at least in the minds of those who are hiring. And I know high-level concept artists that aren't getting work right now. What are you going to do? You know, is it about the skill? As a concept artist, you're in a similar situation to Steven, which is that you need to pick projects and you need to start to develop IPs and things of that nature. So that's at the higher levels. Like you need to start to become a director and start to create ideas and things like that. The other thing is you know, look for the North Stars. This is something we talked about at Vertex. So a North Star for concept right now, an individual who's still working and still grinding, is Jared. Let me see if I can find him. All right, I gotta look at my messages. I'm gonna look at my messages up here, where you can't see them. Okay. What is going on? This is unnecessarily hard. So he's doing quite well, 135. He's worked recently on burrows, developing the concepts, right? And so you need to kind of, as much, oh, were they building it? Oh, yeah. Sweet. Who did it? Steve Wang. All right. This is literally, yeah, that's super cool. So let's get back to you, Ty. You have talent, you have capacity, right? But you need to start thinking about your next level. Definitely make sure that you're developing some 3D, highly recommended. Your capacity to kind of draw these things out is really good, really cool. You just have to worry about this becoming a bit of a commodity. right? And it is. This kind of designing is becoming a bit of a commodity, and you're going to be less in demand, and thriving in Los Angeles is going to be harder and harder. So a lot of concept artists now have moved over into photos and photo bashing and a lot of digital art where you're kind of getting in and really iterating quite quickly on things. Like if we look at the medieval zombie, you know, and you can take Jared as an example. Like, this is what you want. You want to be able to kind of have something here. Ian Joyner's another person to look at, but can you rapid fire a whole bunch of these? So you want to remember, who are you talking to? What do they want? What do people who hire concept artists want nowadays? They want you to help them flesh out a story and start to design things, you know, for them. And they generally want it to happen relatively fast. So you got to give yourself a design brief. Imagine somebody's hiring you. What are they hiring you for? And you got to produce that work. That's the most important thing that you got to do now, is get back to focusing on what somebody's doing and then go from there. I think a friend of mine, Neville Page, is producing a class right now on this. Yeah, let me show you. So Neville I've known for a while. He started in ZBrush around the time I started, done a lot of different stuff. And so check out his academy, because he's dealing with exactly this kind of thing where it's like, how do you master, you know, all of these elements, and what Spielberg wanted, what J.J. Abrams wants, and things like that. So I don't mean to turn this into an ad for Neville's, but that's something that you need to think about, is getting your head around what these people actually need, and you start to design those briefs. So I hope that helps, Ty. If you have a specific question, just let me know. Okay. All right, we got stylized and we got our think tank. So let's go ahead and look here. Character. This is 4 months ago, and we graduated. David, this is the format. I want you to kind of change. Oh, sorry, it was on my screen there. I want you to change what you've done in the format to what I'm going to show you. So Marco took a class with me a while back, long while back. Like, he's just grown this amazing artist. Thank God he still leaves this image up. But you see hero image, hero, I see all the views, some details. See how good that face is, right? Because faces are hard. And then immediately we get into this, where it's like, I see the topology. I don't really care for the black and white. I see the sculpt. I see any details like hair and, you know, all of that. That sculpt is amazing. And then I see texture, right? So this is what you really need to get yourself focused on. Like, this is not, like, these shots don't matter so much, but, you know, this is really important. Like, seeing this. Seeing this, really important as well. Careful, your anatomy is a little bit, you know, and it's okay. This is normal, but the neck should come about like that. You're gonna have da 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 da. You're gonna find C7 about right here. So you know, you gotta reflow some of this, and I would say the acromial process should be reduced. And this part of your trapezius should insert right there. So I would say this part just needs to come forward a little bit and just get it to insert a little bit more in there. And really, I think this needs to go back. Again, necks are a hard one, but in the anatomy class that I have, essentially what I tell people is, you need to think like it's a cylinder. And just try to imagine there's just a cylinder in there. Just try to imagine that there's just a nice simple cylinder. And then later on we throw some anatomy in there and we get some cool things, but just a simple cylinder. Lots of sculpt details, probably too much, but not a bad idea. I see your topology. I would try to get your topology less. No, I think you're within range. It's just the anatomy of your trapezius that needs some help. Okay. Yeah, all right, we're getting lots. You're getting lots of stuff in here, my friend. Hair, that's great. Yeah, this is good. This is shaping up. I'm not sold on the texture. All right, so let me do my higher level crit now. I don't like this as a main image. I feel like recruiters, you know, I want to see the whole thing. So in fact, I don't even see a whole thing. Where is a whole thing? I would like to see this. All in one view, I want to be able to see everything in game. And then I can judge it and be like, yeah, that works. I think I can hire this person. Video, like, it's cool, but I don't want to sit and watch. I don't have time. I haven't had my coffee yet. I haven't eaten lunch. I haven't eaten lunch right now. I don't want to watch this. I just want to see it. Okay. Hair's good. Do me a favor, and you just need to do another pass on getting some, just so that it's not so much like a wig. You just need to get like a little layer, a transition group of cards to help you there. I know it's work, but it makes a difference. And it's not far from what you're doing with the eyebrows. Anatomy is okay. I just don't like the noise on the face. Yeah, it's too noisy. See how much, there's just too much noise. It's like every single pore has dirt in it. And I just don't think that that's believable. Part of it is shape design, right? And then I'm not feeling this. I don't know about your specularity. I think the specularity is what's bugging me, actually. It's very dry. There you go. That was what was bugging me. You see that? Before, after. You got to add your specularity. This is part of look development, is figuring these things out. But I would say overall, you know, it's just the roughness is too much. Wherever that is, whatever map you've got that in. So, does that help? Let me know if that helps. I think it's just going to come down to that. David. That's the concept. Is that what that is? I'm trying to understand. Miguel, yeah, that's the concept. I was like, damn, that's pretty good. So, David, I think this is really good. I think you're in really great shape with this. And I think you are absolutely following, you know, the mantra of illustration and all of that. We probably just need to talk about some of the normal issues that happen in terms of Unreal Engine, right? So I want you to kind of, I don't know how to say this actually. Let me see if I'll be able to say this. There's a cleanliness to the color here, right? And so, like, that's a really red. That's a really pink. You know, like, if we come in here and we find, like, let's find the pink. It's like, it's pink. The colors themselves are clean. Your colors aren't as dramatic. So there's a couple of things to think about. I'm going to try something right off the bat. I'm going to try a curves. And this is just a photographer trick where they go in here and they compress the red, the green, and the blue. And that kind of cleans the color. It makes the red, the green, and on from there. Like, does that make sense? Like, let me see if I can zoom out. Do you see how each has become its own a little bit more? Here it's kind of hazy. Here I've kind of cleaned it and given them their own kind of aspect. We could ramp up the red. We could take the red down, you know, if you wanted to. And this is actually something you can do. These curves is something you can do in Unreal Engine itself, you know. The next thing that I would think about, let's see if I can do this with just this. The values. It's a little brighter. But you got to be careful. Like, you see what I'm doing now? Like, you don't want to do this because it changes the entire intent. You know, because these shadows are actually not very dark. They're not dark at all. So we don't really want to do that, where we're compressing this. We want them to be light. And I think I'm not sold on that. So let's try a levels. This is good. You got great color variation all throughout this. Or not color variation, but values are strong. And voila. You're still not quite there within that aspect, but it is not an easy thing to achieve, you know. They have fantastic warm, cool combination in this. But that is one of the things that you need to figure out is how do you get your shadows to be so cool? Let's go back into that. Even that shadow right there. Hold on, let me get... My blend mode's not the right blend mode. All right, that's not exactly what I'm looking for entirely, but you can see how blue their shadow is. It's something for you to consider as well. So if we go back, so there's your original. Clean the color up a little bit, careful of the contrast. Pull that back. So these two, to me, help lighten this up a little bit. And then start thinking about cooling your shadows. Does that help? It's a beast doing that in Unreal Engine, but it's something you want to learn, especially because you have this penchant for these beautiful stylized environments. Like you did a great job here with the shadow, or maybe that's painted in. But this is concept. No. Let me get you guys looking at this. Good job. Well, where's your kit? Well, it's all modeled as one, right? So, you know, when you are looking at an environment like this, is there a kit? It's hard to say. You know, and it looks like what you've done is modeled, you basically have modeled the whole building, so to speak. And I don't think there's too much of a kit that you can put together. But it'd be really cool if there was. No, it's so much variety. Yeah. But I think this is sold really well. Yeah, I think this is good. So your color is great. I think on spec it's a little bit... That's just secondary details. Yeah, I think you've got a solid piece. So what we need to deal with now, David's not, and I'm going to assume this is actually the case for everything. Yeah, good. Okay, so lots of skill, lots of capacity within you. That was last year. Okay, so I think overall the work shows that you have the capacity, but I think you need to work on your presentation and work on your breakdowns a bit more. The problem is you're a student, so you're not at the position where you're looking for work right now. But you need to think about, you know, really showcasing any specific technical aspects of this. So when we look at the Sunset Cafe, I have this like close-up image. I would almost prefer to be pulled out a little bit, but this is okay. And then we go into the image or the video, where you give us more details. That's great. This image, the third image, is actually the image that I think is the better one to start with, but that's just my taste. And then so as we, I need that. As we get in, we're getting close-ups of little bits of detail, right? Let me show you so we're on the same page. Close-ups, and here you go. Here's our kit. Okay, good. Really wanted you to have a kit. That's good. And you've got your assets. Sweet. Fantastic. Good job. I don't know. I kind of think that this is a good post, David. If I wanted to see anything else, right? Because I have the model of who are you talking to? What do they want? So I'd put the third image as the first image, and I'd keep the rest. I think as you have it, I think it's pretty good. You go into some details. Might be nice to see some texture maps in there for some of the props, but then you get in and you show me the kit pretty quick. And the kit's actually what we really want to know that you can do. Who are you talking to? What do they want, right? And so that, I think, is your best post, David. The entrepot is a cool exercise, but you're going to build that different in the game with that asset. But it's a really cool piece to be looking at. Cool. All right. And then, David, let's go over here. So this is 4 years ago. Super cool. That's 4 years ago. Are you working? In between. Okay, so let's look at 7 months ago. 8 months ago, 4 years ago. All right, so you have capacity. You might, I'm not quite sure, but you might be struggling for work. You might be looking for work, but you have capacity, right? So now what we need to do is start to look at, like, what's the job you want? So you say environment artist. And then we start to think about, like, okay, so how do we line this up? What's missing? And, I would say, in my opinion, this is the perfect conversation for you to be in, because what you're missing in these pieces that are most recent is the visual illustrator perspective. And the older work actually looks like it has that. So I know it's in there, it's on your radar, but you might be rushing to create projects. You need to sit down and think, who are you talking to? What do they want? And you need to avoid the artsy-fartsy. So the artsy-fartsy also includes, the detail-laden stuff, right? So if we look at this is detail-laden, but do I have a sense of scale? So she's this size. How big are these? I feel like those should be bigger, or are those the right size? I'm confused in the sense of scale here. I'm also confused with the color. It's all quite washed out. She's very washed out. That's a big problem. And then it's dark over here, so that's not going to work. And yeah, these are all washed out. I'm not And yeah, I'm very lost at the attention at the detail. Looks like you can do this, but I think you need to go back and really choose a focal point and try to get this into a position of, um, a designed perspective. Okay, so where's my focal point? Let's focus on value structure first. Let's just use multiple. Vignette. I don't know about this. What's that yellow light? I'm not sold on that yellow light. She's so washed out. That's too bright down at the bottom. Let's get some gradients. Some ambient in there. We need to separate whatever that is. And yeah. This is too washed out. Something's going on. But something's not working with the scale. All right. So I don't know exactly what's going on with the sky. There might be some color variation that we need to kind of think about. But the most important thing is that you get back and you start looking at your value structure, and you start letting your value structure start to tell stories in where you want to focus. Because right now my focus is all over and the whole thing's a little bit washed out. It's a great amount of work and detail, but there's no art direction. If we look at this next piece, we have a similar problem of color harmonies. So it's all this color, but how do we get some cools in there? It's all warm. There's no cools. So I'm going to go anywhere where there's, and this is too washed out. Do you see how that's added a little bit more visual interest to it? Just this little bit that I was doing. It just takes it out of the red and we start to get a little flicker of warm and cool, which you have to find. It's in every, it's in every great artist's work, will be warm and cool. And so this kind of stuff reminds me a lot of like Boris Vallejo. And what do you see in Boris Vallejo? You'll see fire, but you're going to see warm to cool. He's actually using green. Now that's going to really help sell whatever's going on. But that's ultimately what is going on, which is that you need to actually start to introduce color. harmonies and variation, right? So it's just right there. Now, I've already made that much more interesting. Does that make sense? Now, on top of that, you'll notice in Boris Vallejo's work, right, it's like there's just one thing. It's a little bit more crafted. God, I forgot how beautiful his anatomy was. Look at that. Whew. Gorgeous. So, you got to put more color. Lots more color. Yeah? Okay, is this your work type? Tie 3P. Were you tie? Maybe you were tie. Implement ZBrush and Blender more. Okay, good. That was Ty is the concept artist. Okay, great. Where were we? David. Good. And David, that's the same across the board. This actually has some color variation in it that's actually quite nice. See the green? So you got to come back to that. All right, we have stylized work next, and I haven't even eaten yet. So how are we doing? I think I looked at this before. And these were just great. I just don't have the art. Yes, I do. There's nothing I can say about this. I think these are great. Yeah, look at that. So beautiful. Oh, I remember these. How long ago? So it depends on what the goal is, right? So I'll get you guys to look at that in a second. But if the goal is to sell this is your own site, you need to put these on ArtStation. So here, let's get everybody to look. So I remember this. This I need to have, the whole thing. This, the low res, the texture map, all that. Same with that. So I don't see enough of that. I really need to see the ArtStation. These won't go. You need to make them lower resolution. These are a long time ago though, so. But now the question is, what are we doing? Oh yeah, look at that. Very cool. Might be nice to break these out a little bit where you have like a couple more examples that you go into closer detail on. And that's 3 years ago. Remember that? 4 years ago. Okay, good. Ultimately, your site looks great. When you go to your ArtStation, we start to see, we don't see certain things. There's no, the quality of it kind of diminishes a little bit here. And so now you got to start thinking, which I'm sure you are thinking because you posted this, is where are you going? Where's the job and all of that? And I'm trying to see if you have a LinkedIn. No, let's check. Yes. And you're already working 3 years. Congrats. I hope that's still working. So what do we want? Like how's the feedback help? I should ask you guys to put a question in there so I know like how to help. If you're working, that's great. If you're working and you want to build your portfolio up, which I would recommend that you do, just start thinking more about the stylized stuff that's your specialty. I think this is a really great thing, and you just got to create more work. But message me. I don't want to take a ton of time trying to figure out what you want. Message me and give me a sense of what you want, and then I'll reply because you're in the server, Discord server. I hope. Okay. All right. Lenavalo, if I say that correct. Berlin. And you're working, so that's good. Oh, I gotta open the door, guys. 1 second. All right, I had to open the door. It's hot in here for some dumbass reason. Trying to figure it out. Zug, mentorship. Lots of mentorship. Okay, so the work is really good. Like that Kingdom Below, pretty awesome, right? So my job is to figure out, like, what do you need? Where do we go from here? And I don't actually know where you want to go. The work quality looks really good. There's a lot of tutorials in there, and so you kind of want to pull those out if you can, and just focus on like projects that you've actually made, right? So if it's a tutorial, it kind of gets discounted. If it's a mentorship project, it's a bit discounted because people don't know how much of that was somebody else and how much of that was you. So it's important that you have work that you've produced and that fits along the theme of where you want to work. So you have stylized, so it's like Blizzard. I think you just need more work like the Kingdom Below. Okay, but along those lines, I gotta go shut the door. 1 second. Okay, so the question becomes, what are you looking to achieve for me? And I can only guess because we don't have like an option here. The work doesn't need my feedback. I'm not going to give you anything that's terribly valuable per se. I think you're hitting the colors, the values, you're hitting the essential craft elements. There's some technical stuff with foliage that's in there. You can make sure you show off your modeling. That's good. But I can help with the career side of it. And so with the work at this level, again, I think you need to remove the mentorship stuff, and you need to start to share your knowledge more and share what you have done, and really present yourself more as somebody who's learned and in this industry. And this is the last one I'm going to critique. This is really the lesson for everybody, which is create tutorials, create reels, share your knowledge. You know, when you share your knowledge, it gives you authority, because, you know, everybody knows different things of X, Y, and Z. We all have gaps. And so if I come to you to learn something, no matter how small or whatnot, you become an authority in my mind. And that leads back and helps you get work. So it's educational marketing is what it's called. I've talked about educational marketing for like 20 years. It's the most important thing that everybody misses. Artists create and they showcase. They create and showcase. And they're like, I just want people to see my work. But it's not about that. You want to create educational content that helps other people, because that helps establish you as an authority, right? I mean, I've been in this industry since it was, you know, knee-high to a grasshopper. And most of the authority people in the industry right now were nothing when I started, if they were even in the industry, okay? Everybody starts. But I have seen so many people shape authority through tutorials, classes, writing stuff, going on 80 level, things like that. And I think, you know, you're a candidate to just go in there and start sharing, you know, your knowledge with the world. And that'll help position you at a higher echelon. And I hope that makes sense. All right, let me check chat. Any questions, team, before we say bye-bye? Put them in chat. You got a moment. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. And if you got questions, leave them in the chat to this. And we'll go from there. This place is going to drive me crazy. I think we have to evacuate. All right, let's see. One question. Is it better to revisit old projects and punch them? I think so. I think you should definitely revisit. But it's a function of time. So if you find yourself time starved and you're like, I can spend a week on this project and it's better, do it. You know, these things take a long time. You spend a week and you're like, I couldn't get anywhere, then you got to cut it, right? But this is our dilemma. And yeah, if you have to redo parts, you have to redo parts. If it takes multiple months, but the ultimate truth is that you're really one project away. Think of it this way. You're one project away from getting a job. So you've already worked on these projects. Work more, grind more, and they'll get better. That's what you need. Okay. All right, guys. Cheers. Have an amazing weekend. You guys want to learn more about what we do, just head over to vertexschool.com. And, you know, it's designed to be a short-term program. Although every quarter I want to turn it into a 1.5-year program. But people keep doing this kind of stuff in 9 months. So it's accelerated, but pretty solid. Okay. Let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, take care.